So we're going to cover 4 products today, mainly. If others come up, we can perhaps discuss them, but I'm planning to focus on methylfolate, serotonin, mood support, happy saffron plus, and omega-3 power squeeze. So methylfolate then is a supplement that the Amen doctors, led by Daniel, asked me to make, and I'm really glad that we have it, because it's really the foundation of any program for fixing mood problems. So it's a 5,000 microgram product, 5 milligrams per capsule. And so folate is a B vitamin, vital for DNA and gene function, for cell growth, repair, and maintenance, for the production of several neurotransmitters in the brain, for the brain to make melatonin, and for the nerve cells to make the myelin insulation, which makes them efficiently, as efficient as they need to be electrically. And methylfolate is a pre-activated folate. The folates that we get from our foods and folic acid supplements, which are the main form of folate available in supplemental form, both require activation by enzymes after they're absorbed. Now, one of the main enzymes required for that activation is a methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, or MTHFR. And both the food folates and folic acid have to pass through this enzyme. And unfortunately, this enzyme has as many as 100 different mutations that are found in the population. And one of the most common is the C677T. And people who have that mutation, who are about 25% of the population, have trouble to convert the food folates and folic acid. And methylfolate bypasses this enzyme. So it does not have to go through this enzyme. It gets absorbed, gets into the circulation, is delivered to the tissues, picked up by the cells, and can get right to work. And a group at Harvard, Massachusetts General Hospital has been doing work on methylfolate for a number of years. And they have found that by giving methylfolate, they not only are able to efficiently raise the levels of folate, active folate in the tissues, but they also find that there can be remarkable benefits just from this one activated B vitamin. And so 15 milligrams per day for 12 months was found to have remarkable benefits, including in individuals who began with low folate levels, some individuals who had what were measured to be normal folate levels, individuals who had been on antidepressants and were not responding well, individuals who were going back and forth between improving and regressing. A very large proportion of all these people responded well just to methylfolate. And then there's also an emerging scientific clinical literature on its use for what I euphemistically call delusional behavior. And so it seems that many people who have delusional behavior have low folate. And when you correct that, you can get improvement. So let's start with at the top left of this diagram. So folic acid then, in that that yellow sphere is synthetic. It does not exist in nature. It does not exist in any of our foods. And it has to go through uh, actually three enzymes in order to, well, three enzyme reactions, but three enzymes in all in order to become activated. So first it has to go through dihydrofolate reductase, then it has to go through serine hydroxymethyltransferase, then it has to go through the MTHFR enzyme. And only then can folic acid be active. And the food folates come in that blue oval representation, and they also have to go through those three enzymes. So by giving methylfolate, we bypass all of those enzymes. And not only the MTHFR, but the previous two enzymes also can have mutations that impair their activity. So in my opinion, really all supplements that deliver B vitamins ought to have methylfolate rather than folic acid. So who can benefit? People with mood problems, practically anyone with any kind of mood problem, delusional behavior, high levels of homocysteine. Now, homocysteine is a normal byproduct of our metabolism, but when it gets to high levels, it can become toxic. It's associated with high risk of adverse cardiovascular events. And so the methylfolate alone, but even better when used with methylvitamin B12 and vitamin B6, will tend to lower homocysteine levels and lower the risk of adverse cardiovascular events. Riboflavin also is another B vitamin that can be useful for that. And this is also methylfolate is also useful for people who have any of a variety of metabolic impairments. And it's worth trying for people who have attention, behavioral problems, socialization problems, especially in children, people with mood cycling, people with postpartum mood issues, women who have just delivered a baby and are having mood problems. And it's suitable for vegetarians and vegans because the glucosamine that's in this ingredient is sourced from plants. Most typically, glucosamine comes from animals, but this particular methylfolate ingredient has glucosamine from plants. And just to remind you, a number of stressors can deplete folate. So alcohol, smoking, and coffee will all tend to deplete it. Oral contraceptives, first generation anticonvulsants, methotrexate, methylprednisone, pentamidine, triamterene, trimethoprim, second generation anticonvulsants, and higher doses of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. And there are no doubt other stressors that will do this as well. So it's very important that patients be monitored for their folate levels, and measuring red blood cell folate is better than doing total blood folate levels, because total blood folate levels include folic acid that the body is unable to convert. So there are more and more instances now of individuals who measure as having what would be regarded as normal blood folate, but actually much of that folate is unconverted folic acid because the enzyme systems cannot manage more than a minimal amount on a daily basis. So how to use this product? It's free from all the common allergens. We make it very clean, as we do with all BrainMD products. The suggested use is 1 capsule, 5 milligrams, 1 to 3 times daily with food. But The Mass General studies find that it really takes 15 milligrams to get the mood response. So someone who's just seeking to improve their folate level would likely do well with one per day, but to really get the mood response, they probably need to go to 3 per day. And the limitation is a warning that we had to put about anyone currently taking methotrexate. So let's move on to serotonin mood support. Very nice story that Daniel told us. I keep learning from his quarter of a century of experience with supplements. And I learned that the serotonin system is a major, perhaps the major regulatory transmitter system in the brain. So the serotonin circuits are spread over practically the entire brain. And the serotonin transmitter system is crucial for brain development from the very earliest, from the first trimester of pregnancy, when the brain is just beginning to develop, and all the way through birth and all the way through adulthood. It regulates sleep, 24-hour circadian rhythms, body temperature, breathing, mood, memory, reward circuitry, emotional aspects, and motor activity. There are relatively few serotonin transmitter neurons, estimated only around 300,000, but they have 14 different receptor types, and therefore they have all sorts of permutations of these 14 receptors that allow them to have highly variable and customized effects on practically all the tissues of the body. And there's a whole lot more serotonin circuitry outside of the brain than within the brain. The serotonin neurons in the brain are also able to regenerate when they're damaged. They seem to be highly resistant to damage from low oxygen or from traumatic damage and other forms of damage. And another aspect of the serotonin system, which has great implications for serotonin mood support as a supplement, is that many of the non-serotonin transmitter neurons have receptors for serotonin. So this allows serotonin to regulate these other neuron circuits. And these include the acetylcholine circuits, dopamine circuits, GABA circuits, glutamate circuits. And to make it even more interesting, some serotonin neurons can release other transmitters along with serotonin. So while they're doing their serotonin thing, they can also be manipulating glutamate neurons, for example, or glutamate circuitry by directly releasing the glutamate transmitter. So serotonin appears to be the brain's main regulatory transmitter. And that's suggesting to me that serotonin mood support has the potential to affect a huge variety of difficulties that a person could be having, way beyond just mood. And so the various nutrients include 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is an essential nutrient precursor converted into serotonin and then further into melatonin as needed. So 5-hydroxytryptophan is normally made from tryptophan in the brain, but we have an understanding with nutritional biochemistry that the closer you can get to the active substance is the better the chance that you can affect that metabolism. So 5-HTP is more active than tryptophan because it's closer to serotonin. And then vitamin B6, which is essential for that transformation from 5-HTP to serotonin. And the availability of B6 limits how much serotonin can be produced, as well as the production of other transmitters that are tied in with serotonin, such as dopamine, GABA, noradrenaline, and even the hormone melatonin. So someone who may not have sufficient B6 could actually have a lot of potential difficulties. And then we have methylfolate also in this supplement, which is essential for the nerve cells to make serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, the myelin insulation, DNA repair, and DNA regulation, gene regulation. So one of the things that fascinates me about dietary supplements and nutritional biochemistry is that the nutrients are the substances that that life processes require. So nutrients power life processes. Drugs don't do that. It's nutrients that do that. We also have vitamin B12 as methyl B12. And in most dietary supplements, B12 is given as cyano B12, which is a cyanide group attached to the B12 molecule. And this is a relic from the discovery of B12 in an obscure bacterium that happens to be able to metabolize cyanide. But humans have to pull the cyanide group off of the B12 before we can utilize the B12. And that cyanide group is a risk factor for smokers and for women who use certain contraceptive products. So I think it's almost scandalous that cyano B12 is still sold in dietary supplements. So methyl B12 then is arguably the most active B12 in the body, and it provides methyl to back up methylfolate. So it's part of the system that regenerates methylfolate once the methylfolate has been used to make transmitters and so on. And B12 on its own is crucial for cognition as well as for mood. And then we have a specific extract of saffron called satiril, which is unique for lowering cravings and for lowering snacking. And at first I didn't want to believe it, but the clinical trial that has been done with satiril shows quite clearly that women who were able to lower their snacking by taking this extract actually lost weight. They lost about 1 pound of weight per month. So if for individuals out there who are struggling and who have these cravings tied in with negative mood, this is another addition to help to fix that. So who can benefit? Anyone wanting a more positive mood? Euphemistically, again, anyone with mood cycling. You know, the regulations require that I have to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek about how I describe these applications. So let's just say that people who have mood cycling can take serotonin mood support and hopefully experience improved mood, elevated mood, without running the risk of transitioning into manic states. Dr. Amen has told us that he prescribes it for some patients who worry at night. That might be me too. It's good for emotional eating by helping to control appetite. And it's suitable for vegans and vegetarians. So how to use it? It's free from all the common allergens, clean as usual. 2 capsules twice a day with food, maximum of 8 capsules daily. Children can take it at 1 capsule per day per 40 pounds of body weight, a maximum 4 caps per day, suitable for vegetarians and vegans. And we had to put a limitation in there: do not use if taking antidepressant or MAO inhibitor medications, mainly because of the 5-HTP. It's probably not a problem, but we are forced to put that on there anyway. And for a similar reason, we can't recommend it during pregnancy. So let's move on to Happy Saffron Plus, which is so aptly named by Daniel. And Daniel can tell you the story of his ancestry from Lebanon, and how if a person comes out from their home in the morning and they look happy, then the neighbor can say, "You look so happy, you must have been eating saffron." So Daniel came up with that name, and I've actually got to like it. It makes me very happy when I see that name. So the ingredients in Happy Saffron Plus then are a very highly concentrated saffron extract that consistently improve mood in double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized trials. And it has high effect sizes for improving mood. And then Daniel had the idea that maybe we should also put in curcumin, because we have access to this special curcumin extract called Longvita, which is not only excellently absorbed, but also has improved mood as well as cognitive function in clinical trials. And then we found that zinc, the humble mineral zinc, which however is essential for at least 300 different human enzymes, an essential nutrient, goes mostly into their active site so that the enzymes cannot work without zinc. It's most concentrated in the brain, and it's needed for regulation of mood. And people with mood challenges tend to have low levels of zinc. So we put that in as well. So here's the beautiful saffron flower, and it dates back to more than 1,000 years before the Common Era. And the first written mention may well be in this Assyrian text from somewhere around 668 to 633 before the Common Era, recommended for diseases of the head. It was also recommended for practically everything else. It's an incredibly diverse set of nutrients and herbals in this flower. So far, about 40 have been identified chemically, but there are at least 100 that potentially could be active. And in the old days, the 3 female reproductive parts, those 3 red strings, the stigmas, would have to be picked by hand and then processed to make first the spice, and then maybe ground up, put into food and all of that. But nowadays, we can actually get the actives from the whole flower. And the harvesting of the flower has now been automated so that the production of saffron is being geared up. And we're going to see a much higher popularity of it. So we can, Daniel and I evolved a grading system under his leadership where saffron can be graded A for mood. We have 2 meta-analyses of mood trials that have been published. So meta-analyses are pooling of the clinical data from multiple trials. And good meta-analyses are very careful, stringent, precise about which trials are chosen to be included in the analysis. So trials that are not well designed do not get into good meta-analyses. And it has been found superior versus placebo in 4 trials, and found superior versus antidepressants in 4 trials, another 4 trials. Its benefits are comparable to fluoxetine, imipramine, and citalopram. It's safe and well tolerated, excellently tolerated, and has a very high effect size, which means that on its own, it can accomplish quite a lot, even when not being used in addition to medications. So the Canadian Network for Mood and Anxiety Treatments has recommended saffron either on its own or in addition to other medications for mild to moderate mood problems. And our specific extract called Affron improved low mood related to stress and anxiousness in adults aged 18 to 77 years. And in another trial, Affron also benefited mood and anxiousness in adolescents. So that's definitely worth thinking about. Saffron actually has benefits for a range of clinical applications. So a trial just came out in which it improved insomnia and quality of sleep better than placebo in healthy adults aged 18 to 70. And adverse sexual function effects of Prozac can be partly reversed using saffron. And I believe Daniel already has some clinical feedback on that. Saffron has improved cognition versus placebo in an Alzheimer's trial, and in another Alzheimer's trial, it was judged comparable to donezepil or Aricept. And while we know that donezepil doesn't work very well for a very long period of time, I think of the use of supplements for cognitive decline or for any other application as additive and perhaps even synergistic in some cases. So because supplements are so well tolerated and have so few adverse effects, you can give a series or a combination of supplements. You don't have to restrict it to just one supplement. And very definitely supplements are not magic bullets, but when you stack them up and prescribe them rationally to individuals with these sorts of problems, you can achieve quite a bit. In ADHD, saffron has shown benefits that in the one trial that was done were comparable to Ritalin. And in one trial with obsessive compulsive disorder subjects, it matched the effects of fluvoxamine. And in a PMS trial, it improved mood and other symptoms. And then in other trials, it has had benefits for the GI system, for ulcerative colitis. Daniel just sent me that trial this morning for the lungs, joints, and eyes. And it seems that wherever saffron is tried, it can have benefit. It has the active substances in saffron have tremendous versatility in terms of their action mechanisms. Curcumin is no slouch either for the brain and for mood. So a meta-analysis of 6 trials concluded that curcumin improved mood and anxiety versus placebo. The Longvita extract of curcumin is an extremely well-absorbed concentrate developed at UCLA with powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. And just to tell you that there are all these turmeric root supplements that are available for sale, but they're basically a waste of money because the curcumins hardly get absorbed from turmeric root. They're very, very poorly soluble in water. And so when they get into the intestinal contents, there's very, very little that get into the circulation and then get to the tissues. Whereas Longvita is especially formulated to be at least 39 times better absorbed than turmeric root source curcuminoids. In a 4-week double-blind trial with healthy elderly subjects, Longvita improved working memory as well as mood and reduced the physical fatigue from taking a challenging cognitive test. So it was one of these tests that was designed to frustrate these elderly people. And if they had taken Longvita for a month prior to taking the test, they did much better in terms of their fatigue and overall level of frustration. And then in a longer term trial, which was designed as a follow-up to the 4-week trial, again, double-blind, randomized, controlled, Longvita had similar findings in a similar group of healthy elderly. So Longvita, curcumin seems to be very promising for mood, as well as anxiousness, and perhaps also for cognitive function. And this is just a quick summary of the versatility of the curcuminoids. Let's start at the bottom blue oval where it says neurogenesis and synaptogenesis. So the curcuminoids are able to elevate the levels of growth factors for neurons, especially nerve growth factor and brain-derived neurotropic factor and glial-derived neurotropic factor, all of which, as they're being released in the adult brain, can lead to enhanced maturation of nerve cells and enhanced repair, etc. Going clockwise, the curcumins have very powerful antioxidant effects, probably comparable to saffron. They can inhibit inflammatory pathways in the brain. They can downregulate the microglia, which are immune cells in the brain. So they can downregulate inappropriate activity of the microglia. They can inhibit the production of tau and amyloid, both of which are found in brains with advanced degeneration. And they have overall neuroprotective effects. And they can also have this nifty effect of picking up excess copper, iron, or zinc that have escaped control by the normal control mechanisms in the brain. So the curcumins are a very worthy addition to the Happy Saffron Plus. And then zinc we talked about earlier, it's actually essential for no less than 2,000 human proteins, at least 300 of which are enzymes. It's needed for energy, to make DNA, for antioxidant enzymes, for cell reproduction, for immunity, and for the body's healthy growth and development. And the serotonin and dopamine circuits require zinc. 6 double-blind trials indicate that supplementing with zinc can improve mood. And so the people with the lowest levels of zinc, or the people with the worst mood problems, tend to have lower levels of zinc than others in the population. And I learned that perhaps as much as 20% of Americans aren't getting sufficient zinc. So the groups that are highest at risk are the elderly, pregnant or lactating women, vegetarians and vegans, alcohol abusers, people with sickle cell. And so moving along here, but I was just, if you consider that this one mineral, so the body needs probably about 19 minerals to power its enzyme systems. And so if you think of this one mineral doing so much, it really can lead you to wonder just how much people who don't take supplements are missing out on. Because we know that huge chunks of the American population are not getting sufficient amounts of vitamins and minerals. So who can benefit from the Happy Saffron Plus? I have to speed up here a little bit so that we'll have time for questions. Anyone with a mood problem, anxiousness, sleep, cognition, because we have both saffron and curcumin in the product, and both of them have shown promise, at least in early trials. And libido. So saffron, we know, can reverse adverse effects of Prozac for libido. And I think it's quite possible that, well, other trials indicate that saffron can benefit erectile dysfunction in men. It doesn't seem to benefit sperm production and sperm count, but it does benefit erectile function. And I have a suspicion that it'll probably also benefit other aspects um, of libido and reproductive sexual function in women. How to use it? Free of all the common allergens, no limitations, 3 capsules daily between meals. Children can take it, suitable for vegetarians and vegans. Now let's go to omega-3 power squeeze real fast. Really have to thank Jim Springer for helping us to get this product, because we had known that we needed a liquid fish oil, and we were sort of a little bit at a
Paris,
loss.
before you go to omega-3 power squeeze, I just want to reiterate, I've been following the saffron literature for a very long time. And when the pandemic hit, some of you probably go, what does Dr. Amen take? And when the pandemic hit, I added 3 happy saffron to my regimen. So I usually take, I regularly take Neurovite Plus, think of that as foundational, brain and memory, power boost, so my brain doesn't age, omega-3 power, and I added happy saffron. My dad died at the beginning of the pandemic. We had to close our New York clinic. It was very stressful. And so I thought, well, support your brain because you love your brain. And despite all of the challenges, I have just felt emotionally very balanced virtually every day. Now I have good brain habits, but this is one I recommend. One of the early testimonials was Viagra for women. And so we embarked on a female sexual function study that we're still ongoing. My assistant who takes it, she started humming during the day. Humming is a sign of happiness. So from a clinical standpoint, it's one I just highly recommend for my patients. And I recently had a patient switch from Effexor to Happy Saffron and says it works much better for him. So I know you're running, Paris, but I wanted to share that.
Yeah, I think this is very good, Daniel, because I think you and I noticed early on that saffron was really an exceptional herb, and we only have 30 milligrams of that Affron extract in the Happy Saffron Plus, but that's the effective dose. People don't need more, and it's really working out very well. And the 177.5 milligrams of the other extract in the serotonin mood support is equivalent roughly to the 30 milligrams of the Affron, because sometimes we get asked that question. So this is a beautiful liquid emulsified omega-3, very highly concentrated in EPA and DHA. Want to thank Jim Springer for helping us to get it. And it's in the near ideal ratio of 1.5 to 1 EPA to DHA for mood benefits. And some of you have heard my membrane presentation, so I'm not going to go into that at the moment. Practically all individuals with cardiac issues and practically all psych patients have way lower than the average for the population of omega-3s in their cell membranes. And a meta-analysis, a huge meta-analysis on cardiovascular outcomes just came out, and it involved 40 randomized controlled trials only on dietary supplementation. So This was a straight up meta-analysis of interventional trials, trials in which under randomized controlled conditions, individuals received either fish oil or EPA only. A huge amount, huge number, 135,000 plus participants. They found reduced risk for myocardial ischemia, coronary heart disease events, fatal myocardial ischemia, and coronary heart disease mortality. They found that EPA alone was not superior to EPA plus DHA. And this is an interesting point because there are drug companies now coming out with pure EPA. And of course, the pricing structure on those is very, very different to the pricing structure for our products. And yet, the pure EPA has not been shown to be superior to EPA plus DHA. And there's many, many, many reasons for believing that DHA should be in any omega-3 supplement. And the recommended dose range from this huge meta-analysis is 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams per day of EPA plus DHA, which is way, way more than a person gets when they buy a fish oil from their local pharmacy. And 1 tablespoon of the omega-3 power delivers 1,500 milligrams of EPA and DHA. So that's right there in that sweet spot. And who can benefit from omega-3 power squeeze? Everyone, because it's essential for our life processes, and yet way less than 10% of the population may not be getting enough. That 10% figure is actually a conservative figure that I came up with, but the percentage of Americans getting sufficient omega-3s may be as low as just 2 or 3%. Certainly in pregnant women, it's less than 5%. At least 23 randomized controlled trials have shown mood improvement, anxiety and stress. At least 19 trials, heart health recommended by the American Heart Association, circulation, cognitive decline, attention and hyperactivity in children, pregnancy and lactation. Somebody has their microphone on. Can you turn it off, please? Pregnancy is especially important because the need for EPA and DHA arises at the point of fertilization and continues and gets higher once the brain and the heart are forming.
Excuse me, Dr. Kidd, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself.
My cell is not on.
Not you. I'm just saying if somebody's on and they're not muted, they need to mute.
No, I already said that too. So it's not my fault. So pregnancy and lactation are especially important. And women all around the world deliver EPA and DHA to their offspring through breastfeeding. And kids who are born deficient in omega-3 have risks for all sorts of brain and behavioral problems all the way through life. And then the omega-3s improve practically every organ that they've been looked at in clinical trials, including bone, by the way. Immune system, liver, joints, muscles, bone, practically every organ. So the omega-3 power supplements are foundational. So you can either take the emulsion, or if you wish, you can take the omega-3 power soft gels. The 2 formulas are practically identical. And we ask that people not exceed 2 tablespoons or 3 grams daily, because there is, at least in theory, a risk of bleeding when you get above that level. In theory, the FDA asks that supplement makers not recommend doses of more than 3,000 milligrams a day. And very definitely, there are physicians who prescribe them at higher levels, and they really need to follow the omega-3 index and make sure that what they're doing is appropriate.